Navigator, and I am here with Harris this afternoon to talk a little bit more about Fee Navigator. And Harris, this is the first time I'm meeting you today. So for the record, would you mind telling us your name and where you're calling in from today?
My name is Harris Lowe. I'm Executive Vice President of Financial Recovery Strategies, and I'm talking to you today from a makeshift home office, but in Long Island, New York.
Very good. Well, thank you for making time to call in today, especially with everything going on. We're kind of smack dab in the middle of the COVID-19 crisis right now, and we know that New York and everywhere around it is one of those hot spots. But Harris, you guys are holding up okay at home? Everybody safe? Everybody well?
Everybody's safe. Everybody well. You know, knock on wood. Things have been going fine, and business is good too. So that's that makes things a little bit more palatable as well.
It definitely does. It definitely does. So let's get into it. We have about 20-30 minutes together this evening. And before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty stuff about, your business, Fee Navigator, we want to hear about all of those things. I'd like to learn just a little bit more about you, as a person, as a professional. I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about your background. What were you doing before you, were with Financial Recovery Strategies? So I have that right?
Financial Recovery. Yes, FRS. You could just say FRS.
I will say
that's how everyone knows them.
That would be great for me. So where were you before you were with FRS, and how did you kind of get into the merchant services industry?
Sure. I actually am a recovering attorney. I practiced commercial litigation for 5 years before leaving that and getting into the cost recovery space, and I had my own cost recovery firm in which we worked with clients across the country to find opportunities for savings or refunds in about 30 different categories. I left that company in early 2018 and came over to FRS in February of 2018. I had been working with FRS actually for the prior 5 years to that as kind of a channel partner. A lot of our clients worked with FRS on the class action side of the business, which is our bread and butter service at FRS, and then came over full-time in February. And fast forward to that, FRS has been in the kind of the merchant services space since around 2011, when the Visa MasterCard class action settlement originally occurred. And like I said, class actions is our bread and butter flagship service. And because of the relationships that we were developing in the industry and the partnerships that we were creating, we started to see opportunities to save clients money. And we also got into the surcharging space and actually made an investment in a company that has a credit card terminal that differentiates between credit card and debit card for surcharging purposes, and we've been doing that for about 4 years now.
That's awesome. Sorry, I'm taking a ton of notes here while you're kind of giving these descriptions. So that's really fascinating. You're in a little bit of a different niche than some of the merchant services clients who are using Fee Navigator. You're in a different niche than some of those are. So I'm kind of interested to hear a little bit more about that. Can you tell me about the specific segment that you serve, or who is your main customer? I know a lot of other merchants are working with retailers and restaurants and this kind of things. Who is your primary customer at FRS?
Interesting question. So our typical client is a company that does revenue of over $100 million a year. But however, with the PCIF case, it's the Visa MasterCard class action I mentioned a little bit ago. That case actually is for larger companies, but it could also be toward the Main Street type of businesses and the smaller type companies, because it's any company that took Visa and MasterCard as a form of payment after 2004 and through January 25th of 2019. So with that, there's not a lot of other class actions that we could do for those smaller type companies and those type of class action recoveries for those type of companies. So what we did was we looked at another consulting model and how we could provide value to those merchants that obviously take credit card and then how we could help them. And that was where we came up with the model of providing consulting services to our merchant clients so that they could have tailored solutions that fit their business's needs and ultimately could save them money.
Got it. So if I'm understanding correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a finance girl, I'm a marketing girl. So a lot of your clients were part of a class action suit. They came to you kind of for legal advice or for assistance in that area, maybe in recovering those fees. And then you guys have been able to develop additional solutions for those clients that might give them those customized solutions or help them, not just, reclaim what they lost, but move forward. Is that accurate assessment or not exactly?
Yeah, just to correct a couple of things you said there, we do not actually represent our clients in a legal capacity on the class action side. So we are a class action claims management consultant, and while I am one of 6 attorneys at FRS, we do not sign any legal retainers. We are handling the claims filing process for our clients, and we do not need to be attorneys for that. That being said, you were right on the money about everything else. We looked at a way to monetize.
For the layman, and that's me. I'm the layman tonight, so that's super helpful.
The laywoman.
Laywoman, that's right, laywoman tonight. So one more just kind of get to know you question before we dig into some of these more businessy type questions or more serious questions. Is there anybody, this might sound kind of silly or personal, but is there anybody that you listen to right now kind of in the influencer space? Are there people that you read, novelists, authors, people out there in, social spaces, networking? Is there anybody that you kind of listen to and would recommend for others?
I do listen to a podcast. I'm trying to pull it up as we speak here. I haven't listened to one in a couple of weeks because I'm not driving to work anymore. I haven't in a month. So my listening to podcasts and stuff like that has actually gone down quite a bit over the past couple of weeks. But I do listen to a podcast. Having a tough time locating it here. But anyway, he posts on SoundCloud. Oh, here it is. It's called the Merchant Sales Podcast. And I listen to that typically once a week about the different things that different sales tactics, how to manage your sales team, different strategies, different products. They talk about kind of really everything that affects the merchant services space on there. So I listen to that podcast. And then I just follow some people that I've met at the Acquirer events that we've been attending since the beginning of 2019. And, that's kind of where we get a lot of our information.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing those tips. So a few more of these, kind of business-centered questions. Back to business for a moment. I want to talk to you a little bit about metrics. As I've mentioned, I work in marketing. Metrics are very important for me. I know metrics are hugely important in the merchant services space as well. So you can talk about what kind of metrics are really important for you and your colleagues and your business. What are those metrics that you're watching? What are those things that you measure that let you know you're succeeding or growing? Can you just talk about that for a little bit? Which ones do you care about right now?
Well, right now, I mean, things are a little bit different now than maybe they were even 6 weeks ago. I mean, obviously, we're looking at our teams, their reach outs, and our reach outs are a little different than probably some other organizations because we do have a vast, client base already from the class action space. So we're reaching out to merchants, and then we have our sales team that's typically reaching out to merchants, emailing them. And so we look at those touches, as I call them, and seeing how many touches they're making toward our clients on a day-to-day basis. And then obviously processing volume and what they're doing there. But those are kind of the only metrics that we're really looking at this time.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Another question I have for you is about your goals. And again, this is a strange time to talk about goals because a lot of people's goals are just kind of, keep your head above water, survive. That's where most of us are at right now. But if you kind of, look at that from the 30,000 foot view, what are some goals for you personally and maybe some goals for FRS that you could talk about?
Yeah, I mean, we did have some goals set up for this year in terms of dollars to be processed and also I guess the number of accounts. Well, it was actually more of just total processing volume that we were looking to get in the door at the beginning of the year. And, our goals are a little bit different than probably other ISOs or other merchant processors, because this is just this is kind of what we call an ancillary service, not necessarily a core service. So our revenue projections for the year don't rely on this side of the business as much. So it's kind of tough to say that what our goals were here, but we were looking to add on, I believe, another $100,000 in monthly residuals each month, and that was kind of one of the main goals at the beginning of the year. That's kind of gone out the door at this point, I would say.
Yeah, gotcha. But I mean, it's still good to have those things. It's still important to have those goals, to have those projections. I think everybody's probably do a few adjustments for the upcoming quarters, but that's okay. Next question I have for you, and again, wanting to kind of bring it back around to Fee Navigator. Tell me how your team is using Fee Navigator.
Sure. So every client or I should say prospects, or it could be a client, that provide statements to us, we automatically provide that to our team. And I mentioned before, Lisa Gonzalez, she's the one that's running that part of the department. She is then using Fee Navigator to do an initial 30,000-foot view of the account. Then we take that statement and we take the Fee Navigator analysis, and that goes out to our analysis team. And then they further the analysis to see, okay, well, this is the Fee Navigator is coming up with some hidden fees. Okay, let's dive in a little bit deeper into that. Let's highlight them on the statement. Okay, we're looking at an account that's priced pretty competitively, not so competitively, or very competitively. So then we look for a strategy, and then we ultimately will look to do a next phase, call with a client, based upon the analysis that we've done, to kind of get some feedback from the client of what type of solution they would want to, would make sense for them. And so we're using that analysis as the real starting point to have the conversation with the client. But prior to that, we really don't know where they're at. So trying to, give a solution when we don't know what the problem is yet is tough to do. So Fee Navigator is what's providing us with the background information so that we can start to have a conversation to provide a solution.
That's awesome. Very well articulated. That's really, really interesting. Again, I've talked to a number of Fee Navigator users and the different ways they're utilizing different tools in different parts of the platform. But really like to hear that you guys are really using that as, you talked about sending it over to your analysis team, kind of finding this information and using that to form your strategy. That's really cool. So again, you touched on this a little bit already, but maybe you can just define it for me a little bit more clearly. What are these problems that Fee Navigator can solve for you? So for example, for reference, if you were doing these same processes without Fee Navigator, what would that look like? How does Fee Navigator help you do this a little bit more smoothly or more effectively?
Well, I think the number one way is that doing analysis and putting them into a spreadsheet, or creating working off of a template and then pumping it in, that took a lot of time, and it was also something that needed to be trained, over and over again. But with Fee Navigator, it kind of takes some of that out. Now you just train the person how to use Fee Navigator, which is a lot simpler and concise than it would be to try to, take someone that maybe that's new to the industry and then teach them how to do an analysis. There's a lot of intellectual capital needed in order to do that, and experience. I don't think someone could just do an analysis, in one fell swoop, or even, with a little training after a couple of days. I've kind of been in the industry, whether it was on the cost saving side and now kind of more on the consulting side, for about 7 years now, and I don't know if I could do an analysis fully yet. So it really cuts down that training aspect of it, and then also the fact that it kind of puts it into a template in a short amount of time. It only takes probably a minute or two to upload. Maybe you have to do a couple of adjustments, and then you have your fully branded analysis that's ready for the next stage of analysis. It's very helpful with the process and with efficiency in that process.
Gotcha. Before you had Fee Navigator, if you can just kind of take us back to that time frame, what was that like? Was that frustrating? Did you have a lot of turnover? Were there areas where you were missing gaps, or that kind of human capital thing where we're talking, this idea that you had to train people? There was a lot of knowledge that was needed. There was sometimes gaps in that. Was that frustrating for you guys?
I don't know if I would say frustrating, but it was something that we were having to outsource, and then we were at the mercy of where that was being outsourced to come back. So instead of getting an analysis done, let's say in 2 minutes, it was potentially taking 48 hours plus, because now we were at the mercy of how busy whoever was doing it outside the company was taking. And then, obviously, if we wanted to bring someone that had experience in-house, good talent costs money. And not saying that we have a lot of employees at this point at FRS, so it's not a matter of not wanting that, but it was an area that we didn't feel like was worth, having someone full time, especially as an ancillary service. But now, we're having Lisa. Lisa's able to do analyses and focus her time on numerous different areas of the business. She's able to help out with underwriting and put a lot of time and effort into making sure our file is ready to be submitted to underwriting, so that we can get it through underwriting in a quick amount of time. We don't like to lose momentum with an application that comes in and have to do a lot of back and forth with the client, where they start to get frustrated. Why are you asking for this now? Why are you asking for this now? So having Lisa's time freed up with Fee Navigator really makes it like now we get that analysis done quickly, and we can focus on a lot more other money-driven activities.
Got it. Awesome. So my last question for you then tonight, would you recommend Fee Navigator to others, and why would you do so, or why would you not? I think that you might, but why would you recommend Fee Navigator to others?
I think it's a very, very useful tool. It's very intuitive and very useful. It's really been a good boost. I mean, like I said, we were actually looking for an analysis, someone that could do analyses in-house, and it was just going to be tough to fit into our business model at that time, at least. So it's really been a really good boost to our merchant services department, and helped us tremendously with getting things templated and out the door, very quickly. So I would certainly recommend it. I would think for any smaller business that it has maybe a couple of people with their feet on the ground, and then there's 1 or 2 people in the office, it would certainly allow those people that are in the office to get things done quicker, and then focus on some other activities that could help get deals across the finish line a lot quicker.
Okay.
And help our merchant clients in other ways that we were seeing out in the industry as we were navigating through this class action settlement. So we started developing different relationships with different ISOs, different other types of processing companies. And we said, okay, well, let's roll this out now that we have this knowledge, and provide value to our clients in something else other than the class action space.